is because the Ultra watch is pitched right at me. It's like, hey, Brendan, you think you run up mountains?
We put as many of those tools on your wrist as we could. The result was the new Apple Watch Ultra.
Well, we're going to give you something that you can do it with. Hey there, welcome to this video. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Brendan. I'm a functional patterns practitioner, and today I'm going to be talking about the long-term review of an Apple Watch Ultra, why it is not an Ultra watch. We're going to talk about 5 things. We're going to go into the pros, kind of cons of each section, and we're going to kind of bring it back round. The tech that I use really tries to complement my lifestyle and my intentions with my behavior towards health. This is why I'm going to share this perspective with you today, is because the Ultra watch is pitched right at my target market. It's me. You think you run up mountains? Well, we're going to give you something that you can do it with. But I don't run up mountains, and that's probably why I bought this watch, which we'll cover in just a second. So, the 5th thing on my list is the straps. Of all things, you're probably like, Jesus, Brendan, why'd you start there? Genuinely speaking, the fact that Apple have created a watch that is big enough, that looks cool enough, that you can use with all the old watch straps that you may have invested in before, I think is fantastic. I think they've done a great job there. I also think what they've done for the third-party market is not ruled them out completely. Like when they created the Apple Watch, they were like, hey, we're going to create this watch system, and then other people can go and make their own versions of it for cheaper prices and sell some really funky stuff and make it really cool and accessible. And so what Apple did was they created a product that they're going to make loads of money out of, and then they just created a subset of businesses and industry that is going to support the economy of the tech world, and I just think that's cool. So I like it. The cons of buying Apple watch straps are that they're expensive, but the pros I see are that it just makes the watch look a little bit cooler on your wrist. You can change things up, which kind of leads me on to number 4 on my list, which is the design of the watch itself. I really like it. I think it's cool. I think it stands out on your wrist. People will know that you're wearing an Apple Watch if that's what bothers you or you want to measure yourself that way. But for me, it's about the durability of it. You've got something that looks really nice on your wrist as a piece of jewelry, but it's like durable as hell. Like there's not a single scratch on this thing, and I've had it for nearly a year now, or whenever it came out. The durability of it's fantastic. There's not a scratch on the screen. It's very hard to break the screen or scratch the screen. I've whacked it against door handles, I've whacked it against all sorts of things, and it's absolutely fine. The action button's quite a cool feature as well, but on the flip side of that, it is still square. It's quite chunky, not the best if you're dressing up to go out somewhere. And the fact is, like, I like 3 buttons, but I prefer 4. I prefer a little bit rounder and like 4 buttons that actually do stuff that's functional rather than kind of look cool. Talk about that in just a second, because if you're running in the rain and you've just got this on your wrist, it can become quite difficult to control the watch face. Let's talk about function, because the buttons, the design, the straps, they kind of lead to the function of the watch itself. The tool in your pocket and what you use your things for. Like, what's the point in buying great things, expensive things? What's the point of investing in expensive stuff? You know, I've got all sorts of kit here. I've got like dumbbells, I've got the RG bar from Functional Patterns, I've got like slam balls. Like if I don't know how to use any of that, then it's just a waste of money. It's just sitting there. And it's the same thing with this. I think of the Garmin stuff that I used in the past as like the most amazing Swiss Army knives in the world. Well, this is a simplified version of that sits on your wrist. It tells the time, you can take some calls on it. I never take my wallet anywhere because it just works as a wallet. So I think as a tool, it's just fantastic. It just does the job. Let's talk a little bit about the activity tracking. I'm in the health and fitness space, and as part of my job, I train. And when I train, I use this watch to track the workouts. You could call my workouts predominantly running based and functional movement based. I used to religiously use a Garmin Phoenix on my wrist with a strap, and I used to connect the two and used to have to worry about my stats every single time I trained. With the Apple Watch, it created sort of just this breath of fresh air. I came in and I was like, do you know what? I'm just gonna press start, let it run, choose the workout I want, and have done with it. And it's been a godsend, really. The wrist-based heart rate tracking is really good. You can connect an external heart rate monitor if you want to. But what I found really cool, and this is something to consider, nobody knew this at the Apple Store, and I was proud that I worked this one out, because I had a previous version of an Apple Watch, and it was a little bit smarter looking. It was one of the stainless steel ones. And what I realized is that if you wore this watch for half the day, and then you wore your other watch for the other half of the day, the data just merged beautifully. There was no issues, there was no hang-ups. You could be wearing this watch, you could train with this watch, you could go out for a run, and then you could pop your smarter watch on and you could go to work, and guess what? All your rings would close, all your data would merge across, and it would all just work really well. And I think that that is huge when it comes to activity tracking and monitoring. I'm a geek. I like my data, and I like to know that if I've got something on my wrist and I maybe swap it out for something else that is the same brand, it's all going to seemingly work together. But the cool thing about this watch is it's complicated enough that you can get a lot from it with all the different apps you can download. You can use it for the activities that you want based on the apps that you want, but at the same time, you can keep it really simple and really intuitive to use. On the flip side of that, there are a few things that really frustrate me. The first thing that frustrates me is, like I said before, the buttons in the screen. Running in the rain, or even having a shower, every time I shower with this watch on, the watch goes berserk. There's some kind of like button that gets pushed or something happens and it just starts vibrating on my wrist and I can't stop it. The buttons don't work, and in the end I have to take the watch off and put it on the side. Like, let's say I go for a run and I'm like in the rain, and I look down and then I see like, oh, I can't actually use the screen because there's water all over it. And then I'm spending all this time going like this and not actually focusing on what I'm supposed to be doing and managing my heart rate and all that kind of stuff. So that's a little bit frustrating, and it would be really cool if Apple could figure out where they stand on the buttons front. Understanding like the relative GPS functionality. So for example, there is a particular route that I tend to run with my wife. And we go out for this run and she's got a Garmin, I've got the Apple Watch. I end up running more than she does to finish the distance that we're going to cover because her watch is just seemingly more accurate in that context. I don't know why. Maybe it's something to do with the trees that are on that road. It's quite a long straight road with like big tall trees, but it's just annoying that every time we go out, she's using her Garmin and I'm using my Apple Watch. I know it's a first world problem, please just put that to one side. Like if you're running for a race metric and you're trying to understand your data, 200 meters is quite a long distance of inaccuracy. Like how is that possible? I don't understand. Who's right? Is Garmin correct? Is Apple correct? So yeah, that's the kind of function element covered, which leads me on to the battery life, which I've never run out of battery on this thing. I've had Apple Watches before. I've always run out of battery. It's really annoying because you get to a point where you're like, this, I've never run out of battery. The optimized charging element is fantastic because you plug it in to charge, and then depending on the charging learning capabilities of the watch, it'll either charge it full for you or it'll charge it to 80% so you're not depleting the battery. I think that's cool, but it's not an ultra watch, guys. Like seriously, it's really like if you're going to go out for a trek in the jungle and you're going to use this watch without access to electricity or a charging device of some description for multiple days at a time, then I think you need to think twice about what kind of watch you get. Sure, it's durable enough to do that, and it looks, you know, like it can do all the things that you need it to do in low power mode for a particular length of time, but in reality, you really need to think a little bit about your choice there, particularly if you're running into races and things like that, where you're going to be using the watch quite a lot. That kind of brings me on to my last point about this watch, and it's the ecosystem. A massive pro on this front is that it's just cool. It's not an ultra watch. It's not designed for Mount Everest. Like genuinely, come on Apple, let's be honest. Like you climbing Mount Everest or in snow peak distance, like trying to use your finger at like minus 300 degrees Celsius, you're gonna struggle. I know Steve Jobs made a big thing about the whole stylus thing and the finger and everything.
Nobody wants a stylus. And we have invented a new technology, fingers, which is phenomenal. It works like magic.
Like genuinely, this faffing around like that when you could just be pushing a button, like that's that's more sensible. So it's definitely not an ultra watch, but it is definitely ultra when it comes to the people that buy the Apple Watches. If you like buy an Apple Watch and then you buy this version, you're probably going to be doing a little bit more aggressive things in your life than you will be if you're just buying the standard one. At the same time, it's just cool. It sits on your wrist, it looks cool, it's got all the bells and whistles that you need, it can track your sleep, it can track your data. I've actually got a video coming out about sleep tracking and health apps that you can use with this watch, so check that video out. The frustrating part for a lot of people is that it just kind of forces you into the ecosystem just that little bit more. I kind of don't care because I have an iPhone, I have a Mac, and then I have this watch, and they all work together really well, and I think that's cool. Just understand that, like, it's not ultra, but it is cool, and if you like cool stuff and you've got money to spend, then it's a good idea to invest in. If you're not going to use it for anything active, then you're just buying something really expensive for the sake of buying something really expensive. Hopefully this video has helped you decide on whether you should buy it, whether you think it's worthwhile, and stay tuned for more functional patterns content coming your way very soon as well. Other than that, have a great day, stay strong, and keep moving.